Supersonics Money Transfer is giving you an unbeatable bonanza from now until the end of October. Yes! From now till the end of October, you stand a chance of winning a bag of rice when you receive monies in the Gambia from UK, Europe, USA, Canada and Switzerland with Supersonics Money Transfer. Amazing! So from now till the end of October, every time you receive monies in the Gambia from UK, Europe, USA, Canada and Switzerland, you stand a chance of winning a bag of rice. Only 100 bags available, so hurry now and be part of the 100 lucky winners in this special unbeatable bonanza from now until the end of October with Supersonics Money Transfer. Enjoy our safe, fast, reliable and convenient money transfer service with the largest payout network in the Gambia with charges starting from $0. Yes! Visit the Google Play Store or the Apple Store today to download the Supersonics Money Transfer app and enjoy excellent money transfer services only with Supersonics. The unbeatable bonanza with Supersonics.
Tamala yoonu gàddaay bu ànd ak xaaxaan dégg xiif nammel ci réewam ak réccute déglul ma Keba Top mi bokkoon ci gaal mu suuf mi mu nettali ñu jaar-jaaram.
métti trop ci biir gaal because di nga toog seben sa soo ko bëggee problème la because of seddaay bi naka la mel lépp
daal de neexul yàlla waaye daal neexul ba neexul waaye daal dëgg-dëgg bokk na ci gaal gi ma ne ko mu ne ma ne ko gaal ba la mu ne bi ñu dee ma ne ko waaw ba tey alhamdulilah lu ci yàlla def rek mu naka la def mucc na wala de bu fekkee dafa mucc nga wax moo su fekkee ba tey dafa dee nga xam ne yàlla moo indi nit.
bu ma ko jos yigéey maa ngi doon jooy.
man bu ma ko déggee foogoon naa ne daal Keba du ma ko tegaat but.
moo ne yooyu kay dafa métti si man torop waaye man dama nekk nit koo xam ne man suma rongoñ yombut pour mu génn.
fekk maa ngi woon exam sax at UTG ak suma biir bi maa ngi doon study ñu call ma ne ma kii de ñu ne dafa gaañu mooy suma friend bi rakam kooku dafa gaañu ñu ne ma dafa dem si gaal ma tiit be mënuma jóg sax fu ma toog suma tànk yi dañ bañ because of my condition léegi si laa laajte ma ne kon Bakeba mu ngi si seen boot boobu noonu ñu ne waaw ma ne kon moom tamit dee na.
toog naa 3 days yoo xam ne lekkuma 3 days boo xam ne si biir gaal bi kenn lekkut kenn naanu kabi tamit mooy loolu problème la day nekk xëccoo bi amuñu woon lefin tamit paas ndox bi daf day ñëw di dugal noonu ba soo seddaay bi nga dee fanaan boobu bor set.
moo dem dara laa si yëgul affaire yi gaal bi dafa ñëw as a surprise to me.
dafa risque daal so yoon bi moom soo si jaaree comme koo xam sax doo ko dee éene pour mu dugaat ko duga si yoon yu mel nii because dafa pain.
bi gaal bi capsized time boobu laa yëg ne Keba dem na.
lu ma expérience gaal bi musuma ko expérience coono boobu musuma ko expérience live dafa métti trop time boobu ak gaal bi nu mu koppee suñ kaw time boobu ganax bi tam mu ngi laa twist la yëngal time boobu doo mun a xam comme lan moo dugal buum bi suma biir baal.
non fekk buum bi mu ngi nekk si baatam bi erreur yi mënut a génn mënut a dugal si laa ñëw lonki buum bi boot ko dama moom si biti.
ndax kii di Keba Top àggoon na foofu ca Babylon.
pour ñu meeg gaal bi mu oyof moo tax ñu bëri seen jacket yi daalay dañ ko sànni because time boobu laal nañ géej Spain bi ba pare.
lijjanti ko ci épisode bii di Tamala si siirisu gàddaay yuñ leen di indil koleel sa bët ci télé bi déglul ma Keba Top mi bokkoon ci gaal mu suuf mi dinañ leen ko indil samedi 3 fan ci biir weeru octobre 2020 fàttalekul ne Babylon mu ngi fii si Jolof waaye nag ci Boko Gome Tamala yoonu gàddaay.
gannaaw mbas mi lakkalee doomi aadama yi ci biir dëkk bi booda yi ñu daal di leen tëj est-ce que booda yi ñi nga xamante ne ñu ngi si daan sukkandiku ñu ngi si am jafe-jafe.
am nañ coono de.
liggéeykat yi est-ce que gars yi ñu ngi liggéey ñu ngi am comme nuñ daan amee.
réew mi amul kenn ku denc dara.
jigéen ñi nga xam ne ni ñu ngi doon dund si booda bi di demalante si ñaari dëkk yi di Sénégal ak Gambie rawatina Gambie at bu nekk luuma day am. luuma fii nga xam ne ni moom mooy Farafeñe ak luuma Kër Paate est-ce que ren ji luuma yu amul sonal na jigéen ñi.
te ñun ci luuma bi lañ daan jaayee di am liñ daan am.
waaye jaaykat yi nga xam ne nii ñoom ñoo nekk si booda bi di yëngatu si wàllu jënd ak jaay gi jamono juñ toll nii lan leen fa nekkee.
doo fi gis fii boo fi àndoon suba ba ngoon mën nga am ñaari weer doo jaay benn Gambien.
mbas mi nag dem na ba nga xam ne nii nit ñi fi mu toll nii sax gëmatuñ ko waaye li gën a raw loxo mooy ñi nekk ci booda bi lan moo leen nekk di sonal.
xiif dépasse da lañ bëgg dépasse na mu ngi bëgg a të.
All right, good morning to you all members of the press. Good morning to my colleagues here on this table. I would read a statement, and then if you have questions, we will, any of us on the table will answer, and that will be it. We're expecting it to be a very short meeting. So let me read the statement. Good morning, colleagues, distinguished members of the press. International Access to Information Day, previously known as Right to Information Day, is held on the 28th of September every year. The day is commemorated in recognition of people's right to access government-held information and the importance of citizens' access to information in promoting transparency and accountability. As the commemoration of the day gained momentum in 2015, UNESCO General Assembly declared September 28th to be International Day for Universal Access to Information. And in 2019, at the 74th UN General Assembly, 28th of September was proclaimed as International Day for Access to Information. Today is indeed an important day for all Gambians. It is a day that is commemorated to remind duty bearers, the government, of our right as citizens and taxpayers to access information on what they are doing and or not doing, the challenges they face, and how we can all better participate to make our country a better place. Knowing the importance of access to information in promoting transparency and accountability, the civil society of the Gambia has joined forces with the Gambia Press Union to develop a broad-based campaign and advocacy for the right to know regime in the Gambia. Access to information is considered a fundamental component of freedom of expression. When citizens are ill-informed and unable to access basic public information, it is impossible for them to fully realize their right to freedom of expression. There is a saying, whenever you don't specify, you leave room for speculation. Currently in the Gambia, the flow of information from the government to citizens has numerous challenges. The websites of many ministries and departments do not have the relevant information. Most websites lack financial or budgetary information. Responses to routine requests are always poorly handled, or most times poorly handled, with institutions often not responding at all, or questioning why the applicant sought the information in the first place. The underlying causes of this is principally the lack of laws guaranteeing access to information. Access to information is central in the realization of a number of rights. Where ATI is absent in a national legislative framework, citizens cannot effectively access information about basic services, fully participate in the social and economic development of their countries, or hold their governments accountable for public spending, which can in turn adversely affect their rights to health, employment, and education, and to fight corruption. Poor access to information disproportionately affects women, children, and the poor and marginalized. who are often adversely affected by a lack of vital information with respect to their legal, political, and economic rights. It further negatively affects economic growth and development, where inadequate mechanisms for sharing information are often attributed to slow progress. ATI legislation is not new. Sweden and Finland enacted such laws as early as 1766, but the past 2 decades have seen a surge in the number of countries adopting ATI laws, indicating recognition that transparency is a necessary condition of democracy. More than half of the countries in the world have enacted ATI laws that provide their citizens with a legal right to access information. However, even though the uptake of this trend was slower in the African continent, in the past 3 years, there has been substantial increase in legislative reforms to recognize the right to access information. South Africa led the way in Africa in 2000 when it adopted the first right to access information. 21 more countries on the continent have since enacted access to information laws. Liberia, keen to rebuild after decades of civil war, became a West African pride after enacting the law in 2010. The first in the sub-region to do so. Several other countries followed suit, and last being Ghana in 2019. We must, however, commend the government through the Ministries of Justice and the AG Chambers and that of Information and Communication Infrastructure for swiftly acting on the draft bill sponsored by Gambia Press Union and civil society and presenting it to the National Assembly within a space of 6 months. This is unprecedented and must be acknowledged and commended. May I pause here to just say that when we were working and when we first handed over the draft bill to the former AG and Minister of Justice, he promised, I think around June, July, that before the end of the year, last year, he would, we will deliberate on the bill, have an exchange between government, civil society, the press union, and he would pass it to the National Assembly before the end of the year. And indeed, he met that promise, and we are so grateful. And it is also an indication that the government is interested in having this law passed. And it's now before the National Assembly. We therefore now urge the National Assembly members to help the executive to realize one of their key campaign promises, enactment of an access to information law. The enactment of this law is going to be a bold and significant commitment to good governance, given that the country is going through a process of democratic reconstruction following the overthrow by the people of the former president. As we anticipate the passing of this law, we encourage members of the public to participate in the process by asking the relevant questions and making use of this great opportunity. With this, I thank you all for your kind and keen attention and pray that God will continue to bless the motherland, the Gambia. Thank you. So, if you have questions, you can direct your questions also to GPU, as I may not be very much aware, but if you have questions, you can ask, and we will try to.
Just tell us your name and then we can pass you from, and we can go ahead and check it. Yes.
Thank you very much. My name is Yusuf Taylor. I'm working for Ghana Online News. My question is regarding the access to information bill. Since it was tabled and it went to the committee, I've been following it. I went to the committee and went to the National Assembly. When will it come? Do you have an idea? Has National Assembly given any indication since their committee meeting? When will it come to the National Assembly for the important next stages? That's one question. And then, most importantly, I remember that there was some issue with regards to the current version that they had at that stage. Maybe this is coming into GPU's domain, because I know, has that been resolved? Is everybody on board with the one bill? You know, this is always a problem when we are talking about bills. You know, they are making amendments, and then somebody circulates one version around. Everybody is now having, you see, half of them are having one bill, the other half is having another bill. So my first question, what next? And then the second question is, how is this issue of the bill? Are they having one bill? Is everybody on one bill sheet?
All right, let me start with the first question, what next? It is before the National Assembly. They had started on the debate clause by clause, and they had really, I think, gone about halfway or so. And we were expecting that it will come in this session, but we all know with the draft and everything, and we could excuse the National Assembly, but we will also keep trying to find out from them when the bill will next be presented, and hopefully, because let me be quick to say, the keen interest the National Assembly, and if you follow the debates, the keen interest they have shown in passing this law, I think, is very commendable. And we will continue to engage them to find out when next they would table it before them for the continuation of the debate. About the documents that were submitted, I think we also got to learn about that. But the good thing is the National Assembly had invited the Coalition for Access to Information to be there. And the Executive Secretary of the GPU was there to go through the concerns that we had prior, that we felt were not addressed in the final draft. So I think the good thing is it doesn't matter which copy they have, but once we have brought to them our concerns that we had initially noticed, I think that will be a good thing. That is a good thing. But I don't know, Jata, whether we have resolved the issue of which one went. But I feel we were able to get the final one that was sent to them. But all our concerns as a coalition were addressed when the Executive Secretary was before the Committee of the National Assembly.
That's at committee level because they don't make decisions. The committees.
Yeah, but you know the committee would be the ones to take the concerns to the floor.
And then they will decide.
Exactly.
They might decide that the recommendation that you want, that they have accepted, the committee could, and then they take it to the National Assembly, and the National Assembly could decide that no, we don't want that.
Well, but that is, you know, I think as civil society, we also need to know where our limits are. We don't pass laws. We expect the people's representatives to pass these laws in our best interest. And what Gambia is yet to know is how do we engage with our representatives. And when things like this go before our representatives, we need to be able to engage them in private, in public, ask them to consider this aspect, that aspect, so that at the end of the day, when the document comes out, it represents our best interest. As it is, our democracy is growing. You cannot always fault the National Assembly, and you cannot also fault always the people, because sometimes we expect our representatives to know better. And if they don't know, we too, the people, sometimes are too complacent. We must be able to engage our National Assembly members. And that is why I said in the last bit that the public must participate in this process. There is no point having a law that nobody is going to test, nobody is going to make use of, if there is a freedom of information law that the government has so graciously been able to take before the National Assembly, and you, a journalist, you get to a ministry to ask for information, and there is dilly-dallying, and you have not gone through the law to find out what recourse you can take, then the law will just be a white elephant. So going forward, and that's why we are going to get into some activities to engage the public to know what freedom of information law is all about, not to abuse it, but to make use of it for the good of everybody. Okay? I hope that addresses. Yes.
Good morning. I am Aissatou Diallo from Gambian Talents TV. As of now, what is the fate of media in the Gambia? Because talking about right to information, we are in the forefront. And considering with the in the draft constitution, there was a portion in which we are catered for. And that draft constitution have already been rejected. So what is the fate of media and media practitioners in this country? Please.
Well, let me first debunk one thing you said, that the media are in the forefront of right to information. You know, that might not really be the case. Yes, the media goes to ask for information, but right to information is everybody's responsibility. I will give you an example. For civil society, we do a lot of project proposals. And most of the project proposals, you will need data from departments and ministries. And you go to the ministries and you don't have it. So our proposals that are supposed to be for the welfare of the whole country, or maybe our interests or our focus groups, I mean, it's nowhere maybe receiving an endorsement by a donor, a potential donor. But the position, I feel that yes, it is sad that the draft constitution has suffered a setback. I do not agree that the draft is dead. I believe it's a setback. And every Gambian must ask himself, herself, how do we overcome this setback? How do we engage as a people, in spite of political difference, in spite of religious and all other differences? How do we as a people engage and see that this draft comes back, maybe in a different form, but comes back for the welfare of everybody? So let's not lose hope. I feel with the passing of this law, it will give journalists, it will give all members of civil society, the student in the classroom that needs information, it will all give us a better Gambia. But let's not lose hope that the draft is dead. As civil society, I cannot tell you everything that we are doing, but we are working on the ground to see how to engage all stakeholders to move the process forward. And I hope that Assembly, government, everybody will listen to what the cry of the Gambian people is, and we will do what is right. But let's not lose hope as journalists. The draft is not dead. There is a setback. Maybe it is in coma, but we will resurrect it. We are Gambians. If we could get rid of tyranny, we could have a draft pass. So let's not lose hope. It is going to be well.
So what is the perspective for the police?
Sorry?
The perspective, sorry. What is the way forward for this bill? I mean,
the freedom of information?
No, I mean the draft. The draft.
Well, we are not here to talk about the draft, but let me say, since I also represent civil society, I feel the way forward will be for us to have a national discourse. Let's bring all stakeholders individually and collectively and find out how do we move from here. For us to, everybody to stay in their position that this is it or nothing, is not going to help us. I think every Gambian agrees that we could improve on the 1997 Constitution. Everybody believes that we deserve better, because that's why a CRC bill became an act of parliament, and a CRC, a Constitutional Review Commission, was established. So I believe there is a general agreement that we need a new constitution. So how we go about it, everybody needs to come on board and let's have a conversation as Gambians first. I believe if we do that, there will be a way forward. And I strongly believe there is still a way forward. Yeah.
I want to comment on the issue of the questions they asked. So, Chairman said, sometimes I tend to disagree with the civil society on whether the draft constitution is dead or not. But I agree with you. Let's agree for the first time that it is in coma. But the fact that the draft constitution is in coma does not mean that every hope for the Gambian media is also good to us. The campaign and the engagement with the government will continue. One of the issues that is still ongoing, we know, is the issue of the access to information bill. The chairman just informed us that the bill is currently at the parliament, and as of the last reading, they were going clause by clause, and it was at the third reading stage. Already out of the 80-something clauses in the access to information bill, more than half of it had been approved by that time. So our expectation was this session, this legislative session, we were going to include it on the agenda, but we were kind of disappointed that they said there is no space for it. But of course we understand, because this legislative session is fully overshadowed by the issue of the Constitution. We do know very soon also the budget session will start. So we can, forget the parliament for that. But that's just one aspect of the advocacy that will continue. The criminal code is also being reviewed and amended. Most of the anti-media laws that are there are currently being reviewed. The ICA Act, which is the Information and Communication Act, it's also being reviewed. Most of the laws that are there that are inimical to the press are being reviewed. So all these gamut of reviews are ongoing, so not all hopes are lost. The Constitution, of course, we all wanted the draft Constitution to come, because it has a lot of very progressive clauses for media freedom, for access to information, and for independence of the media. But the fact that draft Constitution does not pass does not mean that we should all sit down hopelessly to say, all hopes are lost for the Gambian media. Hope is still there, because the government is still accommodative of the media. They're still open to engage us. And as far as we know, they still have the political will. Where we have political will, everything is possible. So let's keep the hopes alive.
Yeah, let me just add to that. I think we need to appreciate that we are in a far better position than we have ever been. And there is a lot of engagement between government and civil society, government and the press. And democracy is a messy and very difficult system to have in place, especially after it has been undermined for 22 years. So let's keep the engagement. Once the government leaves that room open, let's make use of it. Let's never despair, but let's continue pushing. And I'm sure we will get to where we all want to be shortly. Especially the young people, keep fighting for what is right. We will get there. Gambia is a land of peace. Okay, somebody's hand.
Yeah.
Yes.
I just wanted to ask.
Where are you from?
Okay, from Stati.
Okay.
Okay, from first question, when you answered, it wasn't very clear that since in the beginning when it was first tabled and then recommendations were made, has GPU been following on that recommendation and the amendments that are going to be made? And also it's important to note that it's not all about fighting for the access to information bill, for information, but also the accuracy. Because you cannot go to a ministry or anywhere in the company and then, okay, this is the information I want, and then, okay, yes, there is an information bill that is tabled and is accepted that we should give you information. So is that information that I'm going to give you, is it accurate? Is it correct? That is also important to be pointed out in this fight. That we are not only fighting for the access to information, but also if you've given us the information, let it be the correct one or let it be accurate.
Yeah. Thank you very much. On the issue of whether the GPU's opinions and concerns were taken on board, as I said, there are concerns. You can tell somebody your concerns. If they are in a final decision-making point, they take the final decision. But obviously, to a very large extent, we are happy the way the debate is going. Like he said, about 50% of the bill is already endorsed, and we are hoping that we will have what is best for us. I think when the first draft was done and international experts looked at it, Gambia was rated very highly. in the sense that I think 71% or so approval rating on the first draft. That is before we engage government and fine-tune, to a large extent. So we are hoping that Gambia's freedom of information law would be one of the best. Coming to the concerns, I remember when we were doing the validation of the document, the issue of having correct information came up. And I feel that, I cannot remember very clearly now, but I'm sure Jahate would have more information on that. But I remember that that was deliberated upon, and it was a concern that was taken on board. So I believe somewhere in the law, there would be a provision to ensure that we have right information and not just information. But Jahate, maybe you would say something.
I mean, on the issue of whether the GPU was following, the GPU was consistently and on sustained basis following every other step of this access to information there. And of course, like John said, the development was sponsored by the GPU together with the civil society consortium that he is representing. When it was submitted to the Ministry of Information and Justice, the GPU also had a meeting with both ministers, the Minister of Justice and the Minister of Information. When it was tabled to the cabinet also, we followed the cabinet procedure through the Minister of both Justice and of Information. When it reaches the Parliament, because that should be the final stage. When the cabinet submitted to the Parliament also, the GPU followed. Because when the bill reaches the Parliament, it goes through the clerk, then to the committee stage. When it was referred by the plenary to the committee stages, the GPU had a meeting that John was referring to. The GPU had a meeting with the committee that was responsible to review the access information bill. They don't understand everything that the bill was about, so it was incumbent upon the GPU to go and clarify their that. The GPU went there, explained the bill, they raised their concerns, and the GPU also addressed their concern. Principally, one of the issues or one of the concerns about the access to information bill, particularly at the Parliament stage, is the fact that when you have an access to information regime, the public life, the private life of public officers will be normal. That is, private officers will not have their private life. But that is not the case. Access to information bill is coming to make available public information. Information that is produced and processed in the course of your work as a minister, as a permanent secretary, or as a public officer. Your private life, your private information will still be private. And I want people to also understand this. Access to information is making available public health information, government health information. Your information that is private will still remain private. Your private life will still remain private. So access to information is not going to wipe out your privacy. It's not going to take away your private life or private information. No. And that's the same information we pass on to the Parliament. Look, it's good we have access to information, and this access to information, it's not going in any way taking your private life. Your private life still remains private to you. In addition to that also, we have some basic technicalities that we are explaining to them for them to better understand. And as we left that meeting, the committee made us believe that they are in line with all our recommendations. And when the bill also is taken to the and John explained, Flex also is aware, when the committee reports, all that the committee can do is to take note of GPU's concern and eventually report back to the plenary. And at the time of their reporting, most of our concerns, not all certainly, but most of our concerns were captured in the bill that they were working on. And like I said earlier, we are happy that more than 50% of the provisions in the bill are approved as of that time. So anytime that they're going to revive the discussion, it's just going to continue from where they stopped. So we don't think it's going to take them a day for us to have an access to information regime in again. But of course, having the bill enacted and the full implementation is completely different. But now, the advocacy, the campaign is to have it enacted. When we cross that bridge, we will come now, begin a first advocacy, go back to the drawing board to make sure that it is fully implemented. And the full implementation will take care of our concern. The concern that are we having the accurate information? The law, we will now be having a legal bracket to make sure we ask for the law. But that same law is going to give us the difference to make sure that we have the accurate information. In other words, if you feel the information that is given to you by your public officials, by the government, is not accurate, you can also rely on the law and even go further, that is to the court. Challenge the authenticity of the information that is given to you by the ministry, by the minister, by the department to the court. If the court is able to uphold that the information that is given to you is false by the ministry, I'm sure there is going to be repercussions. And those repercussions are also stated in the act. So we have no cause for concern. In an access to information regime, the only information you should receive, the only information you must receive is accurate information, nothing less than that. Anything less than that, the courts are there, challenge the authenticity, and you have your joy. Yeah.
Okay. Any other question?
One. I am Lamin MTC, Gambian Talents TV.
Gambia?
Gambian Talents TV. My question goes to both of you. I wanted to know, why are you not putting on your face mask?
Why I'm not with a face mask?
Yes.
We were told that the distance should be 2 meters. You are all 2 meters away from me. We have done social distance here, so I think I'm safe. And I think you don't also know whether I have a medical condition that prevents me from using a face mask. So I am very responsible when it comes to that. So if you are offended, I'm very sorry. But I feel that I have taken care of every precaution to make sure we are safely distant. And you that is closest to me, I think you are over 2 meters away. So you are safe. Lean on my answer.
Any other questions?
So, I'll ask the question.
I have a question.
Okay, we'll take that and then we'll come to flex. Yes, go ahead.
Yes. Thank you so much. My name is freelance for
For? Chronicle. Okay.
Yes. I've been following this access to information group that is also last engagement you have the drafting of the access to information bill at the video of the House. But I want to believe it is not only about having access to information, but it is also about how easy or how accessible is the media that information and how timely it is. Because most of this time we realize that this public institution, if you are a journalist, if you have to work on small stories, you hardly have put a time to have that information. The excuse they always give you is the information is not a process, or we are still working on it. So it's the campaign need to start from the civil society from us journalists, but also the stakeholders. We need to make more campaign to make sure that the stakeholders are involved. So I want to ask the DPU if they have been engaging other relevant stakeholders who are other relevant stakeholders for them to see, like, it is not only about having access to information, but how important it is also for us and the public in general to get access to this information easily and timely. So that's what I want to do from the side of the DPU, whether they have been engaging other relevant stakeholders to have this information.
Thank you for that question. The access to information bill, or the draft access to information bill that is currently before the National Assembly, comes with time limit and cost provision also. I mean, I can't state offhand, but there is a timeline that is given when you make your request for access to certain information from any department or any ministry. There is a time limit, so it's not as if it is open-ended. When I lodge my request for information, it takes forever, or it's at your own time to give me that information. No, the law is given time limit, and if that time is violated, like I said, we can still rely on that same law to challenge that ministry's response at the level of the court. The law is not going to be auto-correction, and by that I mean the law is not going to come and make the system perfect overnight. But it is up to us to challenge, to rely on that law, use the law to make sure the system is self-corrected. You understand? The fact that the law has limitations, has timeline to say when can that information be given to you. I mean, certainly there may be some times where you will have some challenges, but where challenges and those challenges are not adequately communicated to you, or are not adequately justified, you can go further to test the courts, rely on that law to challenge that ministry at the courts. So in a nutshell, the law has time limits, and if you look at our communication, we are not just saying people should have access to information, but people should have access to accurate information and timely. And that time factor has been taken care of in the bill. And when it comes to the cost, for a greater majority of certain the classes of information, that because information is also classified, there are certain information, processing such information by the government is going to involve cost. So what the access to information bill is saying, it's cost recovery. The government is not supposed to use the access to information bill as a money-making avenue out of the citizens, no. But where the government is incurring costs to produce an information, that cost should be minimal and should be borne by the person who is requesting that information. But for certain classes of requesters like the media, because the reasoning in the bill is journalists don't ask information for themselves. They ask information for the wider good of the society. So journalists should be exempted from any fees, whatever. Whether you incur costs in processing that information or not by the level of the government, the journalist must not be made to pay for that cost. Because the information that they are asking for is the information that is eventually made for the citizens. I don't know whether that's clear. So journalists are exempted, according to the bill as it was, if there is no changes. Journalists are exempted from any cost, any liability for the information that they are asking for. And there is also a time ban. The information that they are asking for, the information provider is time bound to give them that information. So your concerns are well noted in the bill. As soon as we get there, when we like I said, when we get to the enactment stage, when we are campaigning for the implementation, all these things will even be more clear. But for now, the fight and advocacy is, please get us our bill. Give us a law that we can rely on to pass on the information. But in that law, inherent in that law, are the timelines, the time limits, the cost provisions, and all these things are catered for. And I want to buttress one of the points that Chairman said earlier on, which is also coming out in your question. Access to information is not just a tool for journalists alone. Access to information is a right of every other citizen. In fact, in countries where you have access to information, research has said that journalists, the media, are among the minimal users of access to information. For the reasons you said. Because journalists work on deadline. Usually the timeline that is given to the ministry or the department to respond, by the time they respond, that your story is almost stale, or people have known about that information. So journalists are not the biggest users of access to information. Because our deadline and the deadline that is in the act are different. And we cannot make so, we can't just tell government that access information today, it must be provided within 24 hours. We all know government systems are bureaucratic. It takes time to process information. Because of that, by the time they give you the information, you, in fact, get an paper. You understand that kind of thing. You've gone ahead. They are not denying you, but they have the legal right to, to make sure they take their time in processing the information. And just to address the fact that access to information is not just for journalism, it's for every citizen. Our right to life, my right to life would have been meaningless when I don't have access to information. My right to food would have been meaningless when I don't have access to information, access to where I can get quality food from. So you realize access to information is for everyone, for the civil society, for the academia, for the woman and the family, for cross-section of the society. And that is why when the GPU was beginning the campaign for access to information in the country, we brought together all the civil society players. Some civil societies are interested in transparency, some accountability, some women's rights, some children's rights, some education, some research. All these people have a stake in an access to information regime. And that is why all of them were brought together when we are having the campaign for access to information. And gladly, they all supported. Because even internationally, the campaign for access to information was broad-based. It was not just led by the media. Because the media, like I said, is not just the biggest users of the law. The law is for everyone. The fact that GPU is championing it doesn't mean it is just for the journalist. Doesn't mean it is just for the media. The law is for everyone.
I think part of the advocacy going forward, journalists and everybody should come on board with that, is that we need to also encourage the goodwill of public officials. For instance, you as a journalist can ask for information. If the law says 2 weeks, and you, the public official, you have the information readily accessible, why not just make it available? But if you do the thing that, you know, then very problem. Law have been 2 weeks. So you keep it until the 14th or 13th day to give it out. You know, that's not good. So sometimes if the information is there, and that's part of the advocacy, that we have to, as Gambians, have goodwill for one another, goodwill for the public interest. So that even if you are a public servant, and the law says this, and you are able to make it before the time, you should be able to get it out. So part of what we need to do when we are sensitizing and doing advocacy for the implementation is to tell people these are the things, that because the law says this, you know, if you can give it within the time, give it. Don't wait until, you know, the information is extinct. You know, and as I said, the saying that goes that if you don't specify, you leave room for speculation, is true. I mean, most of the problems that we have You see now the police is becoming more and more proactive in giving out information. Sometimes, yes, we are saying, well, it should have come earlier. But you see, there is some progress that pressure has brought to bear. So if the ministries are beginning to voluntarily come out with information, there will be very little room for speculation and all these rumors. So it is even good, because I remember when we talked to the Minister of Justice, he said, you know, this is good for us also, as government, because it will help to get rid of some of the rumors. There is a contract signed, nobody knows about the contract. Oh, there is some 419 happening, there is some bribery. But if you know it's your responsibility as a public official to make it known when the contract is being signed, then you kill speculation and rumors. Okay. Yes.
Yes. Thank you. My last question is regarding the statement that you just made a little bit. The sensitization for implementation is one thing. We haven't reached there yet. Now, you were talking or alluding to some sort of sensitization which will be coming. Can you tell us more? Because why I ask? Most people are in the view that this is for journalists. It tells you that the people haven't taken ownership of this bill. So how are you going to be able to turn that around so that the people know that this is not just a bill for just journalists, it's a bill for everybody? What sensitization have you got planned?
Well, that's a very good question. In the next week or two, the Coalition on Freedom of Access to Information will be doing a nationwide caravan, going to every region, telling people about freedom of information, what is in the works now, and what people need to know. And the people we are engaging are public officials, the general public, all stakeholders, just to know that this is coming and how are we as Gambians to prepare ourselves to make use of it. So in October, maybe the second and third week of October, there will be a nationwide sensitization on freedom of information. It's not going to be the only one, but this is the start. So that we don't wait until the law is passed, but even before it is passed. Because we want people also to engage with their National Assembly members, to ask questions, when is this coming? Because the more we do that, then the more people see the urgency of having this law. But also to have the law, and as we said, and it's not being utilized. You know, a lot of students, a lot of NGOs sometimes have just given up on getting information from government departments. But it is good for us to know that, well, with this law, when it comes, you could go and get accurate information rather than going to Google that maybe the information there is even outdated. You know, so this is what the caravan that is coming in a week or two will be key in bringing some initial sensitization to the general public. When we go to the regions, we are going to talk to the regional authorities because they are public officials there, how they must be ready and willing to give out this information that is of public interest when the law comes into force. And even before the law comes into force, I think we could begin to have this engagement and even give out information. It's public information. Let people have access. I think one of the concerns, you know, from the other side is that sometimes this information could be abused. You know, abuse is everywhere. But when abuse also takes place, you could have laws to address abuse. But you cannot take abuse as an excuse of not having certain laws. You know, there are laws to stop criminal behavior, but people still find way to be criminals. All right. Yeah. Okay. Any other before we close? Well, if not, let me thank you very much and re-echo my sister's apology to you all for the late start. But we thank God we are able to have this, and I hope you have enough information. We will give you the press statement. And it's good to know that we have a courtesy call with the Minister of Information and Communication Infrastructure very shortly after this, just to keep the engagement civil society, press union, and the ministry to tell them that we are partners in development and we are ready to work together for the welfare and the well-being of our country. So we also thank the minister for opening his doors to us, as he has done before, so that we could have this engagement. With this, I thank you all very much for coming, and have a very wonderful rest of the Monday.
Thank you. Thank you, guys.
Tamala yoonu gàddaay bu ànd ak xaaxaan dégg xiif nammel ci réewam ak réccute déglul ma Keba Top mi bokkoon ci gaal mu suux mi mu nettali ñu jaar-jaaram.
ko métti trop si biir gaal because di nga toog seben sa soo ko bëggee problème la because of seddaay bi naka la mel lekk
daal day neexul yàlla waaye daal neexul ba neexul waaye daal dëgg-dëgg bokk na ci gaal gi ma ne ko mu ne ma ne ko gaal ban la mu ne bi ñu dee ma ne ko waaw ba tey alhamdulilah lu ci yàlla def rek mu naka la def mucc na wala bu fekkee dafa mucc nga wax moo su fekkee ba tey dafa dee nga xam ne yàlla moo indi nit.
bu ma ko jos yigéey maa ngi doon jooy.
man bu ma ko déggee foogoon naa ne daal Keba du ma ko tegaat but.
moo ne yooyu kay dafa métti si man torop waaye man dama nekk nit koo xam ne man suma rongoñ yombut pour mu génn.
fekk maa ngi woon exam sax at UTG ak suma biir bi maa ngi doon study ñu call ma ne ma kii de ñu ne dafa gaañu mooy suma friend bi rakam kooku dafa gaañu ñu ne ma dafa dem si gaal ma tiit ba mënuma jóg sax fu ma toog suma tànk yi dañ bañ because of my condition léegi si laa laajte ma ne kon Keba mu ngi si seen boot boobu noonu ñu ne waaw ma ne kon moom tamit dee na.
toog naa 3 days yoo xam ne lekkuma 3 days boo xam ne si biir gaal bi kenn lekkut kenn naanu kabi tamit mooy loolu problème la day nekk xëccoo bi amuñu woon lifin tamit baas ndox bi daf day ñëw di duga noonu ba soo seddaay bi nga dee fanaan boobu bor set.
moo dem dara laa si yëgul affaire yi gaal bi dafa ñëw as a surprise to me.
dafa risque daal so yoon bi moom soo si jaaree comme koo xam sax doo ko dee éene pour mu dugaat ko duga si yoon yu mel nii because dafa pain.
bi gaal bi capsized time boobu laa yëg ne Keba dem na.
lu ma expérience si gaal bi musuma ko expérience coono boobu musuma ko expérience si life dafa métti trop time boobu ak gaal bi nu mu koppee suñ kaw time boobu ganax bi tam mu ngi laaj twist bi la yëngal time boobu doo mun a xam comme lan moo dugal buum bi suma biir baal.
non fekk buum bi mu ngi nekk si baatam bi erreur yi mënut a génn mënut a duga si laa ñëw lonki buum bi boot ko dama moom si biti.
ndax kii di Keba Top àggoon na foofu ca Babylon.
pour ñu meeg gaal bi mu oyof moo tax ñu bëri seen jacket yi daalay dañ ko sànni because time boobu noonu laal nañ géeju Spain bi ba pare.
lijjanti ko ci épisode bii di Tamala si siirisu gàddaay yuñ leen di indil koleel sa bët ci télé bi déglul ma Keba Top mi bokkoon ci gaal mu suux mi dinañ leen ko indil samedi 3 fan ci biir weeru octobre 2020 fàttalekul ne Babylon mu ngi fii si Jolof waaye nag ci Boko Gome. Tamala yoonu gàddaay.
gannaaw mbas mi lakkalee doomi aadama yi ci biir dëkk bi booda yi ñu daal di leen tëj est-ce que booda yi ñi nga xamante ne ñu ngi si daan sukkandiku ñu ngi si am jafe-jafe.
am nañ coono de.
liggéeykat yi est-ce que gars yi ñu ngi liggéey ñu ngi am comme nuñ daan amee.
réew mi amul kenn ku denc ci dara.
jigéen ñi nga xam ne ni ñu ngi doon dund si booda bi di demalante si ñaari dëkk yi di Sénégal ak Gambie rawatina Gambie at bu nekk luuma day am luuma fii nga xam ne ni moom mooy Farafeñe ak luuma Kër Paate est-ce que ren ji luuma yu amul sonal na jigéen ñi.
te ñun ci luuma bi lañ daan jaayee di am liñ daan am.
waaye jaaykat yi nga xam ne nii ñoom ñoo nekk si booda bi di yëngatu si wàllu jënd ak jaay gi jamono juñ toll nii lan leen fa nekkee.
doo fi gis fii boo fi àndoon suba ba ngoon man nga am ñaari weer doo jaay benn Gambien.
mbas mi nag dem na ba nga xam ne nii nit ñi fi mu toll nii sax gumatuñ ko waaye li gën a raw loxo mooy ñi nekk si booda bi lan moo leen nekk di sonal.
xiif. dépasse da lañ bëgg dépasse na mu ngi bëgg a të.